Good evening, Guardians, and welcome back to another episode of Tower Talk Live. This is episode number 40. I'm Ben on the other end of the microphone there. That's Mr. Brent Felsing. We are here on behalf of Short Pause. Make sure you're following us on Twitter at the Short Pause. Tower Talk is our Destiny-focused video discussion series. Brent, where you and I, we hop in here, we talk any and everything in the world of Destiny. We have a damn fine time doing it. Make sure if you like what we do here on Tower Talk, you're bringing all your Destiny friends over, but you're also liking the video, subscribing to the channel, hitting the little bell so you always know when we go live. If you're here watching the show live, definitely be a part of the show. Hop in the comment section, and we'll chat it up with you. Brent, talk to me, man. What's going on here?
Dude, it's been one of those weeks, man. I've been
Yeah.
busy as hell with work. I've been busy as hell outside of work. Never a moment's rest. Axe Insanity's in the chat. Insanity, what's going on, dude?
What's up, Insanity?
And, dude, we're going to do something a little bit different tonight. We're going to do something a little bit different tonight. We have a lot to discuss. There have been a lot of great rumors and leaks that have come out this week that has the Destiny community a buzz right now. And naturally, with my schedule of work and everything outside of work, I haven't had a chance to go over any of this stuff. But you have. And so you're going to break it all down right now, and you're going to get my initial reaction to everything that has supposedly been leaked so far this week. There's been a lot going around, dude. I've been avoiding Reddit this week. Reddit's been blowing up and people talking about stuff. I've seen multiple tweets go out. There's a lot of people talking about these leaks, and you've done your research. You've looked into it.
I have.
And so you're going to start throwing me fastballs, and I'm going to give you like, oh my God, what type of reactions? And I want to get the chat involved too. If you're watching right now, and whatever Boyce is talking about, whatever we discuss, whatever leak we get into, we want to get your thoughts as well. So make sure you chime in the chat. We'll share it with everybody in here. We'll get Boyce's thoughts on your takes. We want to hear from you. Let's do it, Boyce.
Yeah. A very, very busy show ahead of us, Brent. We have many, many things to discuss. So let's get right into it. And we're going to start with some Penumbra news. So let me set the stages. There's a couple things that happened this week. First, there was a post on 4chan by an anonymous leaker. And obviously 4chan, not the most reputable source in the world when it comes to this kind of stuff. But we're going to do something interesting with that leak in a little bit on the show here once I get to it. But this thing surfaces, and it's got some wild stuff in it. All right, let's just preface it there. It's got some wild things in it. Shortly thereafter, so I should probably say this too. So in the Destiny community, there's an individual by the name of Anon the Nine. And he is a very famous leaker of all things Destiny. He has correctly predicted a whole bunch of stuff throughout the history of Destiny. So when this guy talks, when he says stuff, people's ears perk up because a lot of times what he says ends up coming to pass. Even things like when he was talking about the annual pass, people were like, "Nah, that's not happening," and then it came to pass. So this guy's legit when it comes to this kind of stuff. So, Anon the Nine's been dark though for a while now, and many people are like, "What's going on with this dude? Like, what's his deal?" Like, he just kind of went dark, fell off the grid. So this past week on Reddit, a guy by the name of Shadow of Anon the Nine shows up on the scene, and he kind of sets the record straight on what's been going on with Anon. So a number of the things we're going to talk about on the show tonight come from Shadow of Anon the Nine, and then we're going to get into the 4chan leak. We're going to get into some other conversations that are going on in the Destiny community as well related to Destiny 3. So we got a lot of stuff here. But all right, so the stage is set. Let's get to the Penumbra stuff. So this comes courtesy of Shadow of Anon the Nine. In his report, his initial report, because he did two of them. So he gave us one post with Penumbra stuff, and then he's like, in a couple days, I'm going to drop some D3 stuff for you. His whole goal was he wanted the Penumbra stuff to get out there for people to talk about it, to have time to discuss it before he comes out and hits us with the D3 stuff. So this is the initial post from Shadow of Anon the Nine. It reads as follows. This is a throwaway account using a VPN to make sure I don't get anything sent to me like previous leakers such as Anon, Ginsor, and the like. The info that's going to be posted here is a culmination of info given by Anon the Nine in the many discords he's been a part of since before he's laid low, such as Destiny the Game, Admare, Raid Secrets, etc. So these are all discords that Anon was a part of. In these instances, he revealed many things involving Black Armory, Joker's Wild, Penumbra, Destiny 3, and Forsaken before it launched. Most of the annual pass info was glossed over as fake until they were proven. The 4chan leak that's been going on has a few things correct, but a majority of these things are wrong. The correct info is right here. Destiny 3 info, including story, enemies, locations, and abilities, will be revealed at a later date. But for now, the info for Penumbra is as follows. So we're going to read that in a second. So just so everybody's aware here. So what Shadow has done here is he's been involved in the Discords or in these discussion groups that Anon has been a part of, and he's taken the many things that Anon has talked about in these Discords that that he didn't necessarily make a post on Reddit for. He's taken these things that Anon has talked about in a variety of Discords, compiled that information, presumably through screenshots and things where he's just kind of snapping whenever Anon says something in one of these Discords, and he's put it all together in this post here. Mm-hmm. So this is what's going on here. So in terms of Penumbra, the story, we will return to the Leviathan and discover the source of Emperor Callus's power. This also has the first tease of the darkness enemies to be introduced in Destiny 3, and was also teased in the Drifter's lore entry about creatures on an ice planet that he found. When it comes to weapons, we're looking at the return of exotic weapons Hawkmoon and Dark Drinker, which is the Void Sword from Destiny 1, a very, very popular sword, and a new exotic in the form of Rose coming onto the scene. This is the companion hand cannon to Thorn, of course. Mm-hmm. Activities. This one's interesting. Just like how Joker's Wild had Mamba as a code name for Gambit Prime, Penumbra has a code name Dragon Slayer for its pinnacle activity. A new game mode that blends puzzle solving with wave-based combat akin to Prison of the Elders and comparable to an escape room. So, in terms of an explanation for why Anon has been unresponsive, Shadow had this to say. Bungie confronted him and asked him very politely to hold off on the leaks and lay low. He happily obliged. Any leaks coming from people who claim or will claim it's from Anon are false, and it should be known that he had no part and will have no part from now on in any leaks moving forward. The leaks in this post and the leaks in the following post to come later are all we currently know but aren't public. So, once again, this is Shadow gathering Anon's comments from basically this is months ago. This is upwards of 6 months plus ago that he's gathering this information in these various Discords, and he's now putting it together and bringing this information to light. So, with that said, Brent, and of course, take all of this with a grain of salt. None of this is confirmed, but this is kind of the story behind this particular leak. So, one of the things with Penumbra is it's a mysterious piece of DLC. Bungie wants it that way, and just from the leak here from Shadow, we don't have a whole ton to go on here, but from what you're hearing here, I want to get your thoughts on this, man. Initial guttural reaction.
In terms of Penumbra, the fact that we're returning to the Leviathan seems fitting, simply because the Leviathan was such a mysterious environment in the first place, especially the belly of the Leviathan. There was a whole lot of nooks and crannies and different things to explore. And even then, as we ran around through, we've done the raids. We did the raids during the Solstice event, and there was still a lot to explore. There's the Leviathan is massive. It's a massive environment. It's a massive destination, and it's fitting that we were going to go back there for this mysteriously this mystery that is Penumbra, and it's going to focus on a lot of mysteries and a lot of hidden secrets and a lot of stuff like that. It seems like the Leviathan is a perfect setting for this type of event. Yeah. We're talking about.
You'll remember too, Brent. We saw seemingly pictures of the Leviathan in that Vidoc. Yep. When they briefly teased Season of Opulence, when they were coming out with Season of the Drifter, we saw some of those Leviathan environments. We saw Callus's head on like some type of a structure at one point in that video as well. So so it would make sense that it would be a part of this DLC.
Yep, that is all very, very interesting, and I like how these are the types of leakers or these types of like insiders that I really like. The ones that only show up once in a great while. It's the ones that are out there every single day leaking stuff, hit and miss, and they're like, oh, he's an insider. Yeah, but he's batting like 200. When you have an on in the nine, you're batting close to 100, and he's like Daniel Day-Lewis. He only shows up when he has something really, really good. He doesn't half-ass it. He doesn't churn out movie after movie. He just shows up, wins an Oscar. In this case, not shows up. Information shows up. It's mind-blowing, and then he disappears. So that's why
I'm pretty sure he's retired like 7 times from acting. Daniel Day-Lewis.
Until somebody brings him a script and he's like, I can win an Oscar for this. And then he's back. So
yeah.
I appreciate these kind of leaks. But the Hawk Moon coming back, that's pretty sweet. I love the Hawk Moon.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of curious to learn more about the Rose, but obviously that's going to be a little bit down the line. But this other event, this pinnacle event, what's it called again? The Dragon Slayer?
Dragon Slayer is the code name for it.
First of all, a code name after an amazing movie, Dragon Slayer from the 80s. That movie's awesome. But do you think this will be tied into the Leviathan, much like how we see a lot of this stuff tied to Gambit, and that's with Joker's Wild or with the Drifters expansion? Do you think this is something to do with the actual Leviathan? Is this going to be a pinnacle event on the Leviathan?
It could be. I'm not 100% sure. Got a visitor.
Yeah.
It's definitely a possibility that this could take place on Leviathan. I love this idea though. The idea of a wave-based combat that mixes puzzle solving.
Yes.
And if you'll remember on the roadmap for Destiny 2 right now, under the Penumbra section, there is a listing on there for a new pinnacle activity.
Yep.
For six players.
Six players. Now,
This
almost sounds like it's kind of like a miniature raid, because some of these raids have had those cool mechanics where you got to solve puzzles.
Yeah.
And to kind of take that and then mix it in with like a horde-based event, that could be pretty rad, dude.
Yeah.
I've always enjoyed Bungie's ability to deliver like these puzzle elements to their raids, or even just like to certain areas that you discover while playing Destiny. I love those puzzles, those things you got to solve as a team, whether it's something as simple as moving these blocks around, or if there's something else, flicking triggers, or killing something or destroying something in a certain sequence. Their puzzles have been really, really good, and the fact that we're going to have a mode that's a horde mode that's going to have these puzzle elements, these puzzle mechanics mixed in with it, it's almost like, if we're gonna have 6 players, this almost sounds kind of like a mini raid, like a mini sort of raid.
Yeah, it could definitely be that. And then the questions with this that naturally come out of something like this is, if this is to be the next pinnacle activity in Penumbra, with if we think about Black Armory or the Forges as the pinnacle activity in Black Armory, Gambit Prime or the Reckoning as the pinnacle activity in this season that we're currently in. Seemingly, it would make sense for this Dragon Slayer activity to be something that we would play over and over and over. Maybe wouldn't be quite as long as a raid, but would be something that would be a sizable chunk of content. But the question with that would be, like, how would these puzzle mechanics work? Would there be 3 or 4 puzzles, and once we figure them out, we just bang through these every time we do the activity? Or is there a way to make these puzzle activities a little more random, where there's an element of figuring out the puzzle every time we do the activity? I think that's one of the really interesting questions with something like this, with an activity that's meant to be played the way I would assume something like Dragon Slayer would be meant to played.
When you talk about this, when you talk about a horde-based with puzzle elements, I go back and I think about that secret event that came out a couple months back that we tried to figure out. Remember, we went on video and you had to like
the Niobe Labs.
Yes, that's what this kind of, because that was wave based. I mean, there were hordes. You solved the puzzle, went to the next step. Lots of hordes, enemies. That's what I immediately thought of when you brought that up. Is this sounds like the Niobe Labs, where you have to figure out a puzzle and then survive an onslaught of enemies. Insanity says, I get a Vault and Sriracha from Last Wish with horde mode added. That could be interesting as well. There's a lot of cool things they could do with this, but I love the puzzle elements that they're talking about, they're hinting at here. I love anything that involves puzzles and solving things as a mechanic.
Yeah, because they've given us a lot of just flat out action items in during the annual pass. For Destiny, with the Forges, with the Reckoning, with Gambit Prime. This stuff is all kind of balls to the wall action. So I think coming in with Penumbra, a DLC that's said to be mysterious by nature, and to give us an activity based around puzzles as a new 6-player activity with some of that combat or that wave-based stuff we've been doing up to this point. To me, it sounds like the perfect marriage of what we've been building towards with the annual pass, and would make a whole lot of sense for Penumbra to come to a head with an activity like this. And this is completely separate from the raids, which we're also getting a new raid with Penumbra as well. So that is also on the docket.
Now,
that we'll have to look forward to.
Do you think this needs to be a new destination raid, or do you think that this is not going to be another raid on the Leviathan? Do you think?
I don't think so. I mean, they've mined that thing pretty well. We have 3 raids on it currently. So
right.
Unless they found another tunnel in the underbelly there to take us to, I don't know what other area we could go to on the Leviathan. But
I don't mind going back to the Leviathan for the Penumbra stuff, for a lot of the mysteries, because I do feel like that thing is just a perfect setting for that type of theme. But for a raid, I do hope it's a different destination or something that doesn't take us back to the Leviathan.
Yeah, my initial thought with the raid was maybe we finally step foot on like the Cabal homeworld, wherever Callus actually is. Because up to this point, we've just faced Robo Callus, right? when you finish the Leviathan and you get down there and you see the whole row of Callus robots that are down there.
Yes.
So it's like, where is this guy truly? Like, where is he? How is he sitting on a throne somewhere in some Cabal homeworld that we could invade and try to take out for sure now? So I mean, something like that I think would be badass. Taking us to someplace like that. So this is all we have to go off of Penumbra for right now. So I don't think we're gonna get a whole lot from Penumbra. Like we've talked about, Bungie wants this to be mysterious. You know, they've mentioned things like the Whisper quest, things like that are kind of the inspiration for Penumbra. So I'm very curious though to see what this eventually works out to be, and I like the stuff that I'm seeing here.
Now I want to ask you a question. You mentioned in that Shadow mentioned that Bungie reached out to Anon the 9 and said, "Hey man, can you hey man or girl, can you lock it up real quick?" Do you think like they sent like dudes in black suits to like Anon's house, knocked on the door, and was like, "Look, bro, you need to shut it. You're gonna die." Do you think they brought that kind of thunder, or do you think they just found a way to reach out to him like, "Hey, shh, quiet"?
I'm pretty sure they just walked down the hallway and knocked on Deej's door. We're like, "Hey man, you want to lay off the Anon persona?"
Deej is Anon.
Yeah. I would not be surprised though if Anon works for Bungie and he just like does this in his spare time. So they probably just had a staff meeting or walked down the hall and they know who this guy is. They're like, "All right, dude, you need to pull back on this a little bit."
Now, I always wonder, dude. I always wonder if, and this might not be the case. I mean, I never, but these leaks always do one thing: they generate buzz. They generate a lot of discussion, and most importantly, they get feedback indirectly by going into the forums and seeing what people are saying. Yeah, that's cool, or that sucks. I mean, these leaks, Anon has to have some kind of connection to Bungie. But do you think these types of things are actually orchestrated by Bungie with the blessing from Bungie saying, "Hey, look, you're going to be our guy or girl. You're going to be the one that kind of stokes the flames and gets people talking so we can get an idea of what we should do with Destiny 3. Do you think that's this thing, or do you think this is just a rogue agent just sitting there enjoying the fame of being a leaker, or do you think this is something? Do you think these instances are driven by the developer knowingly, or do you think this is a rogue agent?
It's an interesting question, and I think you could easily make a case for both sides of this. Just at first blush, I think this is probably a rogue agent situation with Bungie. I feel like they like to control the messaging behind their game. They like to get out and do their reveal streams, and they're the way they do the posts and the way they disseminate information to the community. I just get the feeling like they want to control the messaging behind this, and a rogue spirit like Anon the 9 seems to go against that that ideal. So I would imagine that this is just somebody who's kind of gone off the beaten path.
Jacob's in the chat. He says, "Well, boys, this is it. I've officially been with the channel for a year now."
Congrats,
Jacob's
Jacob.
been here for a year. Jacob, that's why we love you, man. We appreciate your support.
Man.
Happy 1-year anniversary for being a part of the Short Pause Gaming, man. We really appreciate that, dude.
It's pretty awesome that Jacob knows his yearly anniversary. That's badass.
That's awesome. I don't even know what my anniversary is here
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
I forgot.
It's a true fan. We don't even know. We don't even know when we started. So congratulations to you, man. But yeah, I echo Brent's sentiments. We're always happy to have you, dude. So welcome. And just one more edit to this penumbra post from Shadow here. He wants to make this clear. He means that anything after Anand's disappearance, claiming it's from or by him, is false. Not that all of the content by everyone leaking things after this is false. So just to make that clear. So anybody that's claiming they have new information from Anand is false because Anand has gone dark.
Oh,
all right.
no.
So that is what's going on with Penumbra. Now from here we're gonna shift gears, Brent, and we're gonna go from one end of the spectrum where all of this stuff sounds very plausible, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
This matches up with the direction that Destiny is moving at this point. So we can read this league and be like, man, that sounds like something that could happen.
Yep.
And we're gonna
based on the stuff that we've seen on the calendar and the little tidbits that we pull off the calendar, like you mentioned, those little boxes, 6-player. Yeah. All this stuff is kind of lining up with what we're getting from the league. So yeah, this makes sense. You're like, cool. Yep. This is kind of what my expectations haven't been passed. They haven't been met. It's just right there where I was expecting.
Right. So if this is the Penumbra League here, we're gonna move away from this to like the opposite end of the spectrum. We're not gonna go here. We're not even gonna go here.
No,
we're going down there. We're going way over there.
Yep.
So this next leak we're gonna talk about is the 4chan leak, and it's got some outlandish things on it.
Oh,
so
boy.
Brent, we're gonna play a little game with this.
Oh boy. Okay.
And it's a game I like to call Total BS.
Oh wow. Let's get the chat involved. If you're watching, let's do this. Boyce is gonna list these things off. Either it's cool, is good, or is BS.
Exactly. So we're gonna there's gonna be three categories that you can choose from here. So it's gonna be that could happen, that's unlikely to happen, or this is complete and total BS.
Oh boy.
All right. So that's what we got to choose from here. So
okay. Let's go.
First and foremost, Brent, we're gonna get into some basics of Destiny 3 here. So the Darkness is actually a race of interdimensional beings known as the Veil. The game's storyline is about the second collapse. Essentially, the Veil want to use the light to resurrect the Formless One. It's introducing a brand new darkness element, brand new type of open world that focuses on. Actually, this is going to be a second one. So let's go. The Darkness is actually a race of interdimensional beings known as the Veil, and the game storyline is about the second collapse. Essentially, the Veil want to use the light to resurrect the Formless One. So I ask you, Brent. Could happen, could not happen, or complete and total BS?
Well, I mean, this kind of, everyone wants to use the light for some certain thing. They want to use it for one benefit or another. The fact that the Darkness is actually another species. It's the what are they called? The Veil.
The Veil.
The Veil. Interesting. I mean, I guess that could happen.
Okay.
Kind of could happen. I could see them going that route because
it sounds plausible.
Yeah,
right?
because Gaul wanted the light. He wanted to use the light, and now this another enemy race or another alien race wants to use it to resurrect their formless god or whatever it is. I mean, that kind of fits into the mold of Destiny. Everyone wants to use the light one way or the other to benefit them.
Exactly.
Okay.
I agree with you. I think this could very well be the case, and it's interesting. So, I want you to pay attention to all the stuff we're going over because this is going to lead into the next section where we talk about what Shadow had to say in regards to some of this and what he's heard from Destiny 3. So keep some of this stuff in mind as we're going through here. All right.
Okay.
Next one. Destiny 3 will introduce a brand new darkness element. So I'm assuming they mean like arc, solar, void, darkness, or whatever the case may be. And a brand new type of open world that focuses on faction-oriented gameplay between dark and light guardians. So Brent, I ask you, possible, not possible, or complete and total BS?
I'm going to say this is possible because this ties into what we heard months ago. With people choosing sides, and we're kind of seeing that now with the Drifter and the Vanguard decision. This decide which side do you want to play for. You're kind of seeing that split, that little test, that little sample of what it's like to have the community split in half.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this is kind of a test to see how that works, and this is going to be on a much grander scale. It's not just going to be a quick, oh, this guy's going to say something different than the other guy. This is going to pit side against side, Guardian against Guardian.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this and because we heard this months ago, this one I'm going to say, I'd say this is possibly going to happen.
Yeah, I'm with you too. And the interesting part here is that faction-oriented gameplay between Dark and Light Guardians. Like, how might the open world differ as Guardians choose which side of the light they're aligning themselves with? That's an interesting thing to think about. So I think that this is possible as well. This could very well be the direction that the game goes. Now we're going to get a little more outlandish now, and this is going to grow in its outlandish nature as we go through this here. Next, the Cabal and Fallen are out as enemy races.
Oh.
They're being replaced by the Veil, which are the brand new massive enemy race. Veil have more combat units than every race combined to compensate for the lack of Cabal and Fallen, which, and get this, the Cabal and Fallen are now allied with the city. The Vex, Hive, and Taken are the returning enemy races. The Vex and the Aphelion are two new races being introduced in Destiny 3. So, Brent, I ask you, possible, not possible, or complete and total BS?
I'm at not possible, leaning heavily towards BS. And what is going? Wait, what did they suggest is happening with the Cabal and the Fallen? They're doing what?
The Cabal and Fallen are out, and they're now allying themselves with the city.
No, there's no way.
They're going to be our allies now.
No, there's absolutely no way. There is absolutely no way. I'm gonna go with utter bullshit on this one. I just can't see that. I mean, I understand and plus just in terms of like the game itself, you can't just take out two enemy races, only bring in one. I feel like that's not the evolution of Destiny. That's not going forward and creating you're removing two of the most iconic races that have been there from the beginning. The Cabal are iconic. The Fallen as you know, they're mostly pushovers. I mean, they're drag. The drag is what I think of when I think of the Fallen. But at the same time, you can't. There's no way. I mean, if you want to like scale them back to make way for the Veil, cool. But there's no way they're aligning with the city. There's no way.
Well, they've also now they've not only are the Veil in the fold according to this leak, but they have the Aphelion in here as well, and they're gonna talk a little bit more about them as we go through here. But I'm with you. This is complete and total BS. There's no way that not only will the Cabal and Fallen not be enemy factions, but they'll be allied with the city. That literally makes no sense.
Yeah, like why would they?
Yeah, apparently for survival. They're like, hey, we
I mean, you know, I guess I can understand the drag. They're like, dude, look, man, we're tired of getting housed. All right, let's just go. I'll go clean the shitters in the city. The drag are cleaning shitters, and
maybe,
I can see the Fallen.
Barracks put in a good word for me.
So yeah, the Fallen I could see, but the Cabal, the Cabal are way too ruthless. They're way too barbaric. There's no way they'll be like, all right, guys, let's stop. Yeah. There's no way.
I mean, their whole being is based around war. Like they're built.
Yeah, that's what they are.
Conquerors and soldiers.
They're conquerors. And Jacob says I can agree with the Fallen, but Callous, it may be possible. Could be possible. I don't know, man. There's no way.
I'm with you on that. We're going BS on that one. All right, more story stuff here. Xivu Aerith has a huge role in the storyline. No idea who this guy is, but he's in the lore somewhere. Xivu Aerith has a huge role in the storyline. The Nine are also big players. Their help gets enlisted after the Veil take the system where you meet each of them. And Callus has a massive role in the story, which continues from the events of Penumbra. He's leading a new Shadow faction. Brent, possible, not possible, or complete and total BS?
I'm gonna say the Callous stuff possible. The new character that's going to have a massive role, I'm gonna say that's gonna be a tough sell, because the thing about Destiny has always been the continuity, and it's always been like the characters coming over and being relevant. And this is just some random person that is going to play a huge role. That seems a little strange. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the Callous thing I could buy into. What was the third one?
So we have Xivu Aerith has a huge role. The Nine being big players.
The Nine, yeah, that, because we're starting to see the Nine become a focus now. So that's part of the evolution. We're going to see more than Nine coming in the future. I can see that.
Gotcha. I'm gonna lean towards the not possible on this one. I'm not gonna go total BS, but the fact that they say we're gonna meet each of the 9, I don't know about that. I don't know if we're gonna meet all of them. Callus having a massive role in the story after we just dealt with him in Penumbra and we dealt with him with the Leviathan in Destiny. Not sure about that. I don't know who this Xivu Aerith guy is, but he sounds like a badass dude. So that one's possible, I guess. But I'm gonna lean towards not possible with this.
It's also Jacob makes a good point too. In the enemy of my enemy quest, we're being assisted by Fallen.
Yeah, I mean Spider.
Yeah,
Spider's a Fallen guy, and you work with his Fallen, and
Jacob
the Fallen have worked with the Awoken in the past as well.
Yeah, that's why I can see the Fallen being out of those two. The Fallen are easily the most acceptable in my mind. That can be okay. I can buy into that, but the Cabal, absolutely no way.
Also, the other thing with the Fallen, too, if you've been reading the lore, specifically the stolen intelligence from the Vanguard, there's a whole story in there about how the Fallen are mobilizing their units. They're trying to reset up their new houses and kind of pick up the pieces of their kind of shattered faction at this point and get their druthers back under them. So that would seem diametrically opposed to what we're reading here with them allying themselves with the city. I still don't see it happening. All right, moving on. Factions grant you specialized abilities and perks. Certain factions, such as the Veil's Hand, enable you to tap into the darkness. The game opens with a massive war campaign. All forces of the solar system are fighting against the darkness. The Traveler is critically injured at the beginning of the game and gets overwhelmed. Brent, possible, not possible, or complete and total BS?
Sounds like a bombastic opening. I mean, that's how. That sounds like a massive opening for a game that could set things up for the long haul. Well, let's dissect it again. Break it down again for me. Break it down again.
So factions grant you specialized abilities and perks.
I like that because we haven't seen faction rallies in a while. So maybe this is part of the process of redoing faction rallies, making factions more relevant. And I do like the idea that certain factions promote different perks or give you access to certain perks. I think that actually could work out pretty well.
Yeah, so definitely possible on that. And they have certain factions, such as the Veil's Hand, enable you to tap into darkness powers. So that could definitely be a possibility. We've talked a lot about this on the show, Brent, about this idea of harnessing the darkness. The game opens up with a massive war campaign. All forces of the solar system are fighting against the darkness. The Traveler is critically injured at the beginning of the game and gets overwhelmed, which sounds a lot like the beginning of Destiny 2.
It does. Yeah, once Gaul showed up and he was like, okay, let's put the locks on this guy. So, the Traveler's always taking a beating at the beginning. So that would make sense because it happened in Destiny 2. That's the plot vehicle for all these Destiny games. The Traveler's in trouble.
It also would be weird, though, if it started the exact same way and the Traveler gets injured and things go haywire at that point. Because they're essentially talking about here. They're talking about the city falling again and the Traveler being injured again. We literally just did that in Destiny 2. Now, is this like a Star Wars thing where we're always destroying the Death Star? Like, is that what we're getting at here with the Traveler and Destiny?
I hope that's not the case. Now when you bring it up like that, I don't like that either. I don't want it to be like carbon copy of Destiny 2, so that's kind of weird. Jacob, have a good night, dude. Thanks for stopping by, man.
Thanks, Jacob. So I'm with you, man. I think the faction stuff, possible. I'm going to go with the story stuff here. I'm going to lean towards not possible. I'm not going to go complete and total BS, but I'm going to go not possible right now because it just sounds too much like what we've already done in the game. Moving on from there. Europa, Old Chicago, Venus, and the Hallowed Spire are the game's base worlds. In the story, the darkness completely decimates the city and all of Earth. Brent, possible, not possible, or complete and total BS?
And where are the 3 locations again?
Europa,
Chicago?
Old Chicago, Venus, and the Hallowed Spire.
And these are all the new locations. This is as opposed to where we are now.
Yes, these are the new locations for Destiny 3.
I mean, new locations make sense. I mean, I would expect to have new locations. I'm not entirely impossible.
Yeah, I think it's possible. How about this? Guardians get pushed into the solar system and have to kill the Entombed, the 7 leaders of the Veil. The Hallowed Spire is the new big endgame zone akin to the Dreaming City. It's where a lot of PvP faction gameplay is going down. It's a monolithic alien city where the deep formless one originated from. So with this, Brent, possible, not possible, or complete and total BS?
I think this is possible based on what we heard about the Formless one previously, and it ties in with that. It's a new area to explore. The Dreaming City has been a hit, so it makes sense if Bungie were like, hey, we need something similar to the Dreaming City for endgame content, so that makes sense there. So I'm going to say this is possible.
What do you think about the idea of this Entombed, where they go back to? It sounds a lot like what they did with Forsaken and the Barons. What do you think about this idea of hunting down the 7 leaders of the Veil and killing them? Is that a mechanic you think Bungie would revisit with this game?
If they refine it and if it's like the next evolution of it, yeah, sure. I love having. I thought that was the one cool thing about the Barons is they different fight styles, different encounters, and I really liked how they do it. And again, this is just something they could look at this and be like, how can we expand on this? That's what we always want from our games, keeping what works but expanding on it and making it more in depth and more to do. So this seems like this would be the natural step for this type of event, for this type of theme. Hunt down these 7 guys, different plans, different areas, different types of attacks, and what have you. So I think this is like the next step for that.
I do think players really liked the Barons and how that all
feel
played
like
out.
The Barons, I feel like that went over real well with Destiny players.
It was non-linear as well, so you could kind of pick and choose how you wanted to attack
exactly.
it. So some type of element of that, and that would factor into what we've talked about in the past with more like RPG elements in the game. And an element of non-linearity, I think, helps drive that point home as well. So I could definitely see them going back to the well on that mechanic and, like you said, maybe refining it. So I'm with you. We'll go with possible on this one. Next, each planet is larger than those of Destiny 2. There's a plethora of things to do, such as dungeons and holds. Claiming holds is the basis behind the faction war gameplay, and planets change depending upon which faction is currently dominating them. Possible, not possible, or total BS, Brent?
I'm going to lead with possible and hopeful. This sounds really cool.
Yeah.
Bigger planets to explore. I love the fact we're going back to these faction things. I mean, this sounds like what factions should really be. Factions holding down control points, so to speak, or strongholds so you have control over that certain area. I think that stuff sounds cool. Dungeons, obviously a big part of RPGs, which is something I feel like Destiny 3 is inching towards. We again, go back to that leak we heard months ago, that rumor months ago. This is going to be a more RPG style game. Dungeons are always, one-to-one with or one-to-one relation with RPGs, so this makes sense.
When I think dungeons in Destiny, I think of the Shattered Throne, and if this is leading towards us getting more Shattered Thrones in the game, hell yeah, sign me up for that all day, every day. So, we don't know what dungeons mean in the context of this leak here, but we can hope, right? But yeah, I agree. This is possible. Sounds really cool. Something like this could be extremely neat in the game, and like you said, would really make faction-based stuff a lot more meaningful in the game. So
and see, why I think it is. A lot of this stuff is possible. We've been hearing so far, but if you look at a lot of these things could easily have been spitballed somewhere by somebody just making stuff by looking at everything that has gone over incredibly well in Destiny 2. A lot of the things, people like the Barons, people love the Shattered Throne. They're talking about all these things and then talking about a bigger version of it. So I mean, could that be stuff easily made up by just looking at the things that people have found most popular and go, hey, look, we'll just expand on this, make it sound really great, and it's the same thing? Or is this Bungie learning from what the community has really enjoyed? That's the beauty of it. Could it be bullshit, or could it be Bungie actually learning?
Exactly. And we'll dive a little more into that later on the show here. But moving on with the 4chan leak here, Veil enemies can drastically affect your abilities and the surrounding environment. They're pushing for greater variety in PvE gameplay. Veil enemies can suppress light-based abilities and can also bend and nullify the gravity in areas that surround them. Possible, not possible, or BS, Brent?
I'm going to lean towards not possible because you can't. Because if that's the case, everyone's going to choose the darkness. I mean, if you can sit there and suppress the light and all that, I mean, it would be completely unbalanced. So I'm going to lean towards not possible to probably bullshit.
Yeah, I think that's the key there. If we can harness the darkness in some kind of way and the darkness suppresses the light, then that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So,
Right.
yeah, there's some more fleshing out that needs to be done there. I'm with you. Not possible on that one. The Aphelion are the most dangerous race in the game and are glass cannons. They have the ability to suppress all of your abilities and can nullify resurrection.
Ooh,
Possible, not
damn.
possible, or complete total BS.
You know what? This one I'm gonna say is somewhere between possible and not possible, simply because this is an enemy race that can do this. See, that makes sense. That's a worthy adversary. You know, that's something where the game is challenging you, the player, challenging anybody. That I think is somewhere in the realm of possible, not possible, somewhere in between. I don't think it's total bullshit because this would make for a challenging, a challenging PvE enemy.
I'm going total BS on this one.
Oh,
Just
wow.
because that word all, they have the ability to suppress all of your abilities. Like, well, what are you supposed to do at that point? I mean, if this is an enemy race that we're going to fight in the game, they can suppress all of our abilities and nullify our ability to resurrect. Like, what are we supposed to do? We're
Well,
gonna,
that's
bite
basically
their knees.
it's basically no respawn zone. You know, it's just no respawn. You die. You can't be resurrected.
And I guess we could just shoot. I guess you could
Yeah,
still shoot.
yeah. You can still, it's like those. It's like that place on the Dreadnought where you couldn't jump.
Yeah.
Yeah, you basically. I mean, you're just restricted on your movement. I mean, it's come on, man. It's a different way to challenge the players.
Yeah. I mean, maybe there's a boss or something that does this, but I don't see the whole race doing this to you.
Yeah.
I'm sticking with BS on that. Um, this is a good one here. Are you ready for this one?
Oh boy.
The game is shipping with count them, two massive raids. I know the first one takes you to the heart of the Hallowed Spire, where you'll be facing down the Formless One, the heart of the deep itself. It is a massive 12-player raid. That's the grand finale of the second Collapse storyline. The second one is focused around the Hive. Possible, not possible, or complete and total BS, friends.
Last time I checked, Bungie just got a lot smaller in terms of their support. I'm gonna go bullshit on this. 12 players is a lot. And the 6-player raids have always been the perfect size. I think that's always been perfect. I mean, like I said, Bungie is not getting bigger. And for them to develop, I mean, they had the support of 3 or 4 studios. You know, prior to Destiny 2 launching, they could only come out with one raid. There's no way one studio is going to have 2 massive 12-player raid as well. I'm going to go with bullshit. If they pull it off, that's really impressive.
I am with you that this is complete and total BS, and the main reason is because of this. A 12-player raid is diametrically opposed to Bungie's philosophy on raids up to this point. Yep. They do not offer matchmaking in raids because they understand that the way that these raids are crafted with the puzzle mechanics that are in these raids requires an intense amount of communication and teamwork in order to successfully pull these off. So they don't even let you matchmake. They're like, you have to go out and find 6 people that you can work with so that you can communicate adequately and get through these things. Now they're going to ask us to go out and find 11 other people to be able to do this? No way.
No.
There's no way.
No.
It makes absolutely no sense in the context of what Bungie has always wanted to do with raids.
Yeah,
so,
and I mean, and can you imagine? You know, matchmaking with 6 people, it would be tough because again, you don't know who you can count on. Now you have 12 people. There's no way, and it's difficult. It's hard as hell to find 6 people for some of us. I mean, there's other people. There's other clans out there that can drop of a hat, have 6 ready to go. But I mean, we struggle to find 6 people. Now imagine having to trying to set up things with 12 friends, 12 players. No way.
Now, I could see if they want to do take like an escalation protocol type of activity, take that to the next level.
Sure.
You know, there were ways to get 9 people into those occurrences, and some people went through the loopholes to do that. And Bungie saw that people really, really enjoyed that activity, especially when they were in there with 9 other people and they're kind of going at it against these huge bosses. Now, if they want to take escalation protocol to the next level and do something that's extremely action focused and challenging like that, I could see that, but not a raid.
No way.
Not a raid. That's just it doesn't match with what they want to do with raids. That one's total BS. Moving on from there. Guardians can represent a number of factions that include Future War Cult, New Monarchy, Dead Orbit, the Veil's Hand, Emperor's Shadow, and the House of Judgment, which of course is Varrix's old haunt. So Brent, what do you think about this? Possible, not possible, or BS?
Well, I mean, I guess it's possible if you're including Future War Cult, Dead Orbit, and What's
New
the other one?
Monarchy.
New Monarchy. I mean, you've got the 3 in there, so I mean that'll make it believable. But I mean, yeah, to include more, why not? I mean, it's taking I mean, look, Bungie is looking at faction rallies and factions in general and trying to find a way to make them relevant again, make them or find a better use for them. This would be kind of cool to be able to sit there and choose from multiple different factions.
Yeah.
That's a lot, though. That's a lot.
That's where I'm at on this. I'm leaning towards not possible on this because not only do you have the 3 that we've been with, but you have these 3 new ones, and according to their information in here, the Veil's Hand is the one that lets you access the darkness.
Yeah.
So would we really have 5 light factions and 1 dark faction? That doesn't seem to add up.
No.
The Emperor's Shadow and House of Judgment, like maybe Callus's group and the Fallen have found a way to harness the darkness. Maybe there's 3 darkness factions, but I don't know. I'm leaning towards not possible on that one.
Yeah, there would have to be more than one faction because it would just get everyone would be choosing the darkness one. They'd be choosing that one because that's the new hotness. You want to try using the darkness. You want to try using that stuff out, and it's completely unbalanced. That just seems unless like you said, the other maybe it's halvesies. 3 do lightness and 3 do darkness. You know, that's how they could make it work. But that just seems like that's a lot of factions.
Yeah, seems like a lot. How about this one? Trials of the 9 is coming back, hosted by the 9 themselves this time around. They are also the heads of their own faction, so that we have a 7th one now with the 9, which is based around ranking up in trials specifically. What do you think about this one, Brent? Possible, not possible, or complete and total BS?
I'm gonna go with BS on that. It doesn't sound like that's what people want from the Trials of the 9. Trials of the 9 is a PvP activity. I don't know why they'd be involved in factions.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the final bullet point on this leak reads as follows. Destiny 3 is being developed to be a return to form for hardcore players and veterans of the series. Possible, not possible, or complete and total BS.
Possible, and it better be.
Yeah, possible and highly probable, and I would be shocked if it wasn't this way because it's already going down this road as we speak.
Yep.
Like literally, we could have just looked at the game and just postulated this. Like
Yep.
where it's at right now. Destiny is pretty hardcore as we sit right now. Not a whole lot of casual fans tuning in for Season of the Drifter, right?
No.
Like, this is a pretty hardcore game where we sit right now. So that is the end of the 4chan leak, and there is an edit at the bottom of this list here. The poster had this to say: I've had additional confirmation from a source. This 4chan leak uses some legit notes, such as the Veil and the 4 planets, but is for the most part fan fiction. Apologies for this, guys. As I said, I'd seen some of it prior, but not all, and now I know why. So that's a little addendum to this post here. So interesting things in there. Some possible, some not possible, some just total garbage, but some interesting stuff in there to think about for Destiny 3. And that's going to lead in to the next part of the Destiny 3 leak, which is Shadow, who came back onto the scene a couple days after his Penumbra leak and was like, here's the information I got for D3. So let's check in with what Shadow has to say about D3, Brent, and we'll compare and contrast what we just read from 4chan there. So this is Shadow of Anon the 9 once again showing up on Reddit a few days ago. After observing the massive amounts of people express their excitement for Penumbra, there were even more asking for info on Destiny 3 and Destiny 2 Year 3. Originally, this was supposed to release on Friday, this post he's talking about. However, I decided to release it early as the previous post grew so much larger than I anticipated.
Right.
Like you didn't anticipate your Destiny leak would be a big deal on the Destiny Reddit. So without further ado, here is the post in its entirety. All right, now Shadow actually starts with some more information on Penumbra, interestingly enough, in this. So one more tidbit here about Destiny 2 Year 3. Not much detail is known outside of the business model and a small detail about the content. There will not be another Comet DLC, meaning Taken King, Rise of Iron, Forsaken, to kick off Destiny 2 Year 3. In its place will be an annual pass 2.0 style model. However, there will be a slightly larger DLC in its first entry instead of every DLC being around the same size. Now, as an addendum to this, a Redditor came in and asked several questions of Shadow after this post went live, and one of the questions he asked, since there is no Comet DLC, will there be 4 annual pass drops? And Shadow had this to say: the amount of annual pass 2.0 DLC is unknown. He also asked, the first annual pass drop is larger, as you said. If you were to compare it to another DLC we've had so far, would Curse of Osiris or Warmind sized sound right? He had this to say. I'm unsure. Rise of Iron wasn't much bigger than Warmind anyway, so I can't say for certain. If I had to take a shot in the dark, I'd say Forsaken, but without the Dreaming City, I guess.
Okay, well, I mean, there was some pretty good narrative.
I mean,
there's a lot there in terms of story.
Yeah, there's a lot in there outside of Dreaming City.
There's a lot in Forsaken that, you know, outside of the Dreaming City in terms of like narrative and stuff to do. There was a lot included there, so that's actually promising.
Yeah. So what do you think about this, Brent? What do you think about us getting not a brand new Forsaken style or even a Rise of Iron style expansion here, but getting a new annual pass to take us through year 3 of Destiny 2? How would you feel about that?
Obviously, the expectation's been set for a while now that the fall is always the big update. You know, the big content drop. But I think when you look at Bungie right now and it transitioning to an independent studio, basically handling the things themselves and gearing up for Destiny 3, I guess it does make sense that they kind of scale things back so they can focus more on, you know, the big stuff for Destiny 3. Obviously, Destiny 3 is going to be a completely different style of game. It's going to have a lot of what makes Destiny good, but it's going to be a different vision for Destiny. It's going to be a different form of game. And, you know, maybe that's why, you know, they don't have the resources they had prior to, you know, breaking up from Activision. So we have to kind of set our expectations a little bit. You know, look, they're gearing up for Destiny 3. We're not going to get that big drop, but we're going to get something Forsaken size. And the thing is, man, you got to believe that with the annual pass, we're going to get, even though they're not going to be massive like DLCs, we're going to start getting a lot of hints and a lot of teases and a lot of like a narrative tropes that are going to kind of get us prepared, get us talking, get us thinking about where we're heading in Destiny 3.
Yeah, and there's so many different ways they could go with this now, Brad. I mean,
yeah.
there's a lot of story threads being picked, especially in Season of the Drifter. A lot of things are coming to fruition here in the lore of the game. A lot of big time storylines progressing behind the scenes. So which direction they decide to go? I mean, obviously the darkness is the big thing that we need to confront at some point. It makes a whole lot of sense for that to be part of Destiny 3. But how much of what's going on right now in the game is addressed in year 3 of Destiny 2? I would be astounded if at some point we don't maybe we don't go to the Dreadnought again. Once again, I don't know what the plan is for Destiny moving forward, but we have to face Savathun at some point. It's been building up to this for a while now. So I would be shocked if we don't encounter her at some point over the course of Destiny 2 year 3. So so on the one hand, I of course want a big fall DLC for Destiny 2. Like that's what we've been accustomed to. But at the same token, like I can see that that not being the same just because they don't have the same resources they had before. They're no longer with Activision, and they need to, you know, kind of figure out what works for them now in terms of this. Take a swig of water here because I'm dying. All right, so that's the Destiny 2 year 3 stuff. So that's after Penumbra. So we like Shadow says we don't know anything about the content right now, but that's what he's heard. There will be an annual pass 2.0 style. All right, so let's move on to what Shadow has to say about Destiny 3. And once again, we'll compare this with what we just went over with 4chan. So keep in mind everything that we talked about before and what he's going to talk about here. So as far as locations go, Old Chicago, Europa, and a return to Venus have been confirmed. Sounds a whole lot like what we just read, right?
Wow, yeah. Okay.
Endgame locations. The immense pyramid-like ship that has been teased since Destiny 2 Vanilla was also seen as a hologram in the Queen's Court.
Yep.
This is the flagship of a new enemy race, which will serve as the main threat in the story. This location, in essence, would become the Dreaming City of Destiny 3. So, Brent, in the 4chan leak, they described this area as the Hallowed Spire. Here, Shadow is describing this as the pyramid ships that we saw at the end of Destiny 2 and briefly in the Queen's Court as we were going through the Dreaming City there as well. So what do you think about this? Plausible? It makes sense that that we'd have a Dreaming City style location. I feel like that location went over extremely well with fans.
Hmm.
It would make sense that they would have an end game location moving forward. But what do you think about this? Three locations and an end game location. Is that enough? Does it seem like it's not enough? I mean, are these just massive locations, or what do you think about this?
Obviously, the more locations, the better. But
Yeah.
if there's a lot of substance in these locations, if there's a lot of things to explore, if these are large areas
Hmm.
that has a lot of layers to it, then I'm cool with it just being a couple layers. As long as there is a lot to do and it doesn't become repetitive over time. I don't want to get bored. I want it to be, especially if it's like a dynamic setting where things are constantly changing and different enemies and different activities pop up. That type of cycling and that type of changing things up can make those areas seem fresh. The fact that the pyramid ship could be the end game location makes a lot of sense. That was a very big portion. That was a very big part of the end credits for Destiny 2. And we've seen that same ship in the Queen's Court as well as that hologram. So we know that this is going to be an integral part of the future of Destiny, and it makes total sense. That'd be a cool spot to explore, depending on how much there is to explore, how much there is to it. But obviously, this is going to be an important part of Destiny going forward.
Yeah, man, how badass would it be to be on that ship finally?
Oh, hell yeah, dude.
We've been building to this for a while. There's been the hints that talked about it in the lore and at the end of Destiny 2, and then as you're going through the Dreaming City and you're doing the offerings to the Oracle, then the ships show up there and you're like, whoa, what the hell are those doing there?
What's this doing here?
What is going on? So yeah, that's just one of there's a lot of stuff going on with the Queen. If you watched the Invitation of the Nine last week, there's a lot of stuff going on with the Queen. So. She was involved in that as well, so there's lots of stuff that's going on with her right now that's got to come to fruition here at some point. Let's talk a new enemy race. So how about this, Brent? Astro Demons, known only as the Veil. Sound familiar?
Sounds familiar.
Their visual appearance is described as having dark greenish skin, sharp claws, and having a distinct stench of wet earth, as mentioned by Ada One's mother in the lore entries brought with Black Armory. It is also worth noting that the Veil, being the true servants of the darkness, are on an equal power level to Guardians, if not stronger. Brent, so not only do we have the Veil listed here again, but we get a little more detail about what they are and where they're coming from. What do you think about this, dude?
Man, when I think of an enemy race that could possibly be stronger than Guardians, I think of an enemy race that could probably suppress our abilities.
about the Aphelion or whatever they were talking about.
No, that sounds like a worthy adversary. It sounds like something we've never seen before, and it sounds like something that could pose as because if there's one thing about Destiny, when we fight a lot of these enemy races, never at any point are we feel really overpowered by them. We don't feel like they're an immense threat, an immediate threat, like we are really going to die. I mean, the Cabal are the Cabal, and we dispatched them rather quickly. Same with the Fallen, the Taken, and whatnot. But this sounds like a formidable foe. This sounds like a legitimate threat to our existence.
And what I like about this, Brent, and what makes a lot of sense to me is, up to this point, we've kind of thought of the darkness as this enemy, but where we're talking about it here is the darkness is the yin and the yang to the light's yin.
Yep.
It's like we have light, which Guardians can wield, and they can use that to harness their abilities. And it makes sense that the darkness is the opposite force that these enemy factions are wielding, and they're using that ability. So the darkness is not an enemy that we're fighting. It's another force of nature that the enemies are wielding themselves to get these abilities. So it makes sense to me that the Veil would be this group that harnesses the darkness. They are the anti-Guardians.
Right.
Like how cool is that? That we're Guardians wielding the light, going up against this faction that we finally come face to face with, and they're the people that wield the true darkness. Those are the only guys that could ever be our equal. The guys that harness the opposite end of the light spectrum. So I think that makes a lot of sense and sounds very interesting.
Insanity says, will they be a smarter enemy, though? More of a challenge if they are near our strength levels? I mean, I would hope so. Enemy AI is integral to a game, and if they're a smarter enemy, if they know how to utilize the darkness in ways that really push us to our limits, then yeah, I think they have to be smarter. If they have the abilities, I do want them to be a smarter foe.
Yeah. So I think there's some interesting stuff there, and to me, this reads as more plausible than what we were just reading from the
Oh yeah.
4chan leak. Like this is more like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. And obviously there's some crossover here with what we're talking about here, what was in the 4chan leak. But as Shadow's going to talk about, like this is kind of a mix and mash of truth and false when it comes to the 4chan stuff. So let's continue on with story stuff here. So during the collapse, the god of the Veil was slain in a conflict with the light. Since then, the Veil have been waiting for the Traveler to reawaken so they can siphon its power and resurrect their dead god. So, this makes sense, Brent. The end of Destiny 2, those ships came alive after the Traveler came back alive and sent out its light wave. And to me, this sounds like a more plausible story than the Veil show up and eliminate the city again or hurt the Traveler or whatever. I mean, obviously they want to get their hands on the Traveler and they're going to use this to resurrect their dead god. But this sounds badass, man.
Yeah, that sounds sweet, and that's like, again, it makes sense. Everyone wants what the Traveler can do. Everyone wants the light to use it to some benefit, and this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Definitely. So
and it ties in. I think that sounds a little bit better because it fits the ending of Destiny 2, than opposed to just some other crew showing up and destroying the city and reliving all that. You're basically taking what we saw at the end of Destiny 2 as the catalyst of what's going to happen in Destiny 3.
Yeah. So I like that. If that's the way this story is going, I think that sounds really cool, and I'd be very interested to see who these Veil are and what's going down with that. Ability wise, so darkness-based abilities are confirmed. So we've heard this several times now, not only in crazy stuff like the 4chan leak, but in what Anan said previously, what Shadow is saying now. So there's a lot of talk around darkness-based abilities, and the game's just building towards it, Brent. I mean, the Drifter is harnessing the darkness as we speak in the tower. As we get into Gambit, we're grabbing motes of darkness and wielding them. So darkness-based abilities are confirmed. However, I am unsure of any changes, additions to the traditional subclasses. So that's the question here. So do we get another element that's the darkness, or do we get a darkness version of Arc, Solar, and Void? Like, is there an opposite end of the spectrum where we have our classic subclasses, but they're darkness-based now instead? So we have two different sides of the coin to choose from. What do you think, man?
I think it's got to be the latter of those two, because you want to have everyone have multiple classes. You don't want to just be stuck with one class for the bad guy or for the darkness, and then the light side gets three of them. So I think they're going to, if that's the case, then you're going to have like probably different variations of Arc, Solar, and Void for each side.
Yeah. Do you think it would be Arc, Solar, Void on the light and then Arc, Solar, Void on the dark side, or do you think they would get their own elements for the darkness? Would there be three new elements?
I think that'd be cool. The cooler way to do it is to have three different elements. I guess it just depends on how much effort Bungie wants to put into it. I mean, personally, I think it'd be rad if we had something completely different, but I don't know what elements they would go with. Maybe ice or something to that effect, or or it could just be Arc, Solar, Void, because I feel like that ties into all the enemy types with their different shields and stuff. So you don't want to have like, I don't want to be doing a mission with the dark and not have any of the proper elements to drop a shield. So I feel like it's probably going to be Void, Solar, and Arc, but with different variations of like their abilities.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. You got to think about like how that affects game design, how that affects game balance, like how would that all factor in? And I'm sure they could figure out a way to do 6, but does it become too complicated at that point if you've got 6 different elements to worry about as opposed to 3? Like 3 works so good right now in the context of the game. So do they want to upset the apple cart on that? It'll be interesting to see. This is an interesting one here. New game design. Open world PvPvE areas, more akin to Planet Side than to the Division. Crucible and sandbox changes are currently unknown. Now, Brent, have you ever played Planet Side?
I played it.
I want to say this was an early PS4 game, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was on PC, and then it came to PS4 for a little bit. I never played it.
I played a little bit of it, but not enough to like really draw an opinion on it. It didn't blow me away, but I mean, I didn't really dive into it to really get the gist of it.
So this doesn't directly talk about like faction-based gameplay, but PvPvE areas that would seem to lean towards some type of a faction element to it, right? Whether it's just light and dark, or there's the factions involved like we were talking about in the 4chan leak. What do you think about that though? What do you think about opening up these areas to PvE areas? Like, would the whole game be designed like this? Would it just be certain areas that you go into? Like, what would something like this look like in Destiny?
I feel like if with the Dark Zone, there's so many different layers to that in the Division 2 now, and I love the idea of that, of going into an area where it's, hey, look, I'm with my Dark Squad. There's another squad over here, yielding using the light, and you still got to deal with the enemies in the area. I do like that concept. I just don't know if I want that for the entire area. I do like the setup right now with Destiny. The way that we know to explore these areas. That's how we play it. That's how I would like to see that remain. But yeah. I do like the idea of having like these certain areas that you go into, similar to like you do the Dark Zone in Division 2, where it kind of opens up for dark versus light versus PvE elements.
Yeah. I mean, if Bungie is home to many great game designers, and if anybody could figure out how to do this really cool, it would be them. So I'm on board with whatever they want to do with this. I'll just say I'm intrigued at this point. I don't know anything about PlanetSide. I've never played it, so I don't know, because it says more PlanetSide than Division. So I don't know what difference that is in terms of that. But yeah, I'm very curious to see what that amounts to. And then we have this note about the direction of the game. So, and this will obviously sound very familiar because we've talked about this on the show several times already. But the goal of Destiny 3 is to cater to the hardcore audience more than anything. This game will supposedly be much more difficult than previous entries, and will very much focus on how the hardcore community of the franchise will play. Destiny 3 will also provide more RPG elements in its approach to design compared to previous entries in the franchise. I mean, it makes sense, right, Brent? What we've been talking about on the show is just leaning more and more into that hardcore space. And if they double down on the RPG elements and make this game harder, it's one of the issues I've had with the campaigns of Destiny. They just haven't been very challenging. Now, the other stuff in the game is incredibly challenging, like raids and these pinnacle activities. There's some hard stuff in there. So, like, how much harder do those get? And how much harder does the base game get? But I'm totally on board with us continuing down this path of hardcore and catering to that audience, because that's the people that love and play this game and keep it alive.
Yeah, and if you look at where we're at right now with Destiny 2, the things that they've introduced, we've got the choose a different side, choose the Vanguard, choose the Drifter. That's something RPG-ish that you would see in RPG. Choose this, you see the other faction react differently. The other group reacts to you differently. So that's cool. That's sort of what you see in RPGs. You look at the gear sets that we're getting with Gambit Prime. That's a way to look at things. And the more pieces that you get together, the more perks you unlock. That's something you see in Division 2 with their gear sets. And that's very RPG-ish as well. So we're starting to see these little experiments in Destiny 2, and I gotta believe, dude, this is. It's not even a fact of believing it that it's gotta be what it is. This is what it is. They're looking at all these little inclusions to see how well it works in a first-person shooter, and this is just baby steps to where we're headed with Destiny 3. We're getting a glimpse right now of what Bungie is envisioning for Destiny 3, and these are all RPG elements that are going to be expanded upon greatly based on what we're hearing here.
Yeah, and they basically talked about that in the Vidoc, right? Like, now that they're free from Activision, they're starting to piece together what a Bungie-controlled Destiny looks like. And I think it makes sense that they would start sprinkling little ideas here and there, because obviously a lot of the stuff's been in development already for a long time. There's only so much they can do, but they can sprinkle in these little changes and, like, okay, let's see what this does. Let's see how this plays out. They can sprinkle these things in there and see how it works as they start to build what their vision of this game looks like. So I think that makes a ton of sense. Now, there is a disclaimer with Shadow here. He says, because these are all leaks from before Anon went dark, so once again, we're talking about months and months and months ago, these are all early development decisions and are subject to change. In addition, outside of the Penumbra info and what you read here today, I am unaware of any confirmed or otherwise evident changes to current or future information. When it comes to the 4chan post, to address the many questions I received about my comments on the 4chan leaks, this is all I have to say. The leaks that were posted were a combination of legitimate leaks from Anon mixed with their own theory and speculation, but presented as a true leak. Whether or not Aphelions, faction-oriented gameplay design, us teaming up with the Cabal and Fallen, Callus having a major presence in the story, or 12-man raids are talked about. The bottom line is that none of those things are present in any credible leaks anywhere. What is in this post talking about D3 is what is known 100% as straight from Anon and no one else. There is no spin and there is no angle. A very direct and confident statement when it comes to the 4chan leaks and what Shadow is presenting to us here with Destiny 3. So as a whole, Brent, what do you think about what Shadow's saying here and the direction that we're moving with D3? Is this where you want to see this game go?
More hardcore, more RPG elements, more PvP, PvE elements, which is expanding on what we've seen in some things. No, this is
new enemy race for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, and we're seeing the dots connected between what we saw at the end of Destiny 2, what we've seen throughout Destiny 2, and what we're hearing they're going for with Destiny 3. A lot of this stuff is starting to paint a clear picture, and this is the direction I want Destiny to go. There's a lot of things that we've talked about. It's too easy. We want a more difficult campaign. They're looking at it. We love these gear sets. We're going to get more RPG elements. We want more of an impact on the story. We want to see our decisions have an impact. We saw that with the Drifter and the Vanguard. That's RPG. That's stuff we're going to get it by choosing darkness or light. This is just expanding towards Destiny 3. It's going to get bigger.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I love the way all this stuff sounds. Like this sounds freaking awesome. Like if this is the direction they're going, like sign me up for this. This sounds super cool. The ability to wield the darkness. I mean, like all of this is just this is going to be super cool if this is the way this plays out.
This is what Insanity wants. He says, yeah, that's the direction it needs to go, at least in my opinion, and I agree with him 100%. This is where it needs to go. Yeah, I think if they do the things that are being talked about here, they're gonna have a very, very happy community on their hands once Destiny 3 rolls around. And I think that speaks volumes to Bungie's respect for the community, because by going this route, you are going to lose some of your casual audience.
Yeah.
But they don't give a damn anymore. They've heard that. They've heard the cries from the community for the last how many years now? What is it, 5 years since Destiny's been a thing? 2014?
Yep.
They've heard it enough. This is going to be their last go. This is probably the last entry in the Destiny series will be Destiny 3. This is probably because they planned on 10 years. This is probably going to be the culmination. This is going to be the end of everything. So they want to go out with a bang. They want to give the fans, the people that have been there for the last 5 years, the game they've been clamoring for this whole time. This is it. This is it for Destiny. But Bungie understands, look, we're probably going to lose some of the casual audience, but these people are the ones that have been around for the longest time. They've been the ones that have supported us through the tough times. Let's make the game they want us to make.
And this could also be, Brent, this could be the forever Destiny. Like, what if now that Bungie has control of this game themselves, they don't have anybody else to cater to other than what they want to do. Yeah. Like, they can now create a game where they don't have to make another game. Like, once Destiny 3 comes out, they don't have to make a Destiny 4 or think about creating a new engine or whatever the case may be. Like, whatever they do with Destiny 3, like, that could be their forever Destiny. They could just update that from now on. They don't have to worry about Activision anymore. They can just do what they want to do with their game now.
That's true.
So whether that's Destiny 3 is the big climax of the game and the game rides off into the sunset and they work on this new IP that they have, or whether they keep a Destiny team and have a new team that makes this new game, whatever they want to do, if they're going to have that option with Destiny 3, and if they go this route, like, they're going to have a lot to mine from that game. So very, very excited about the future and curious when they're going to start talking about that. I got to believe this summer we're going to start to hear about exactly what their plans are for this game, probably in some level of detail. So it's exciting to think about what could become from that. Now, switching gears here slightly, Brent, although still talking Destiny 3. So there not only was all of this going on in the community this week with these leaks, but there's this huge conversation that struck up about the Crucible and the idea that Bungie could possibly leave PvP behind in the future of Destiny. So this all started from an episode of I think it was Fireteam Chat, but they had an episode where they mentioned a leak from an anonymous leaker who mentioned that the possibility that Bungie was abandoning the Crucible moving forward, whether that's I would assume just in Destiny 3. Obviously, it's in Destiny 2. They wouldn't take it out of that game. But moving forward, that Destiny 3 could possibly not have PvP. So this set off a huge conversation in the community. People on all sides of the equation talking about what that would mean, what it wouldn't mean, what it would do to the community, what it would do to the game. So there's been a ton of talk about this. Tassie wrote an article on it. I mean, there's the article after article out there, Twitter post after Twitter post. This thing blew up in the community so much that Bungie had to address it this week in a number of different ways. So before we get to what Bungie had to say about this, Brent, I want to give my 2 cents on it. I want to get your thoughts on it. But in my humble opinion, there is no Destiny without PvP. PvP is half of this game, and I'm always astonished when I go and look at my Destiny stats and I see just how much time I've spent in the Crucible doing Crucible activities. I was never like a huge PvP guy before. I something that was fun and I would jump into every now and then. But to see the amount of hours I've poured into the Crucible for this game, it's unreal. And I do enjoy the Crucible a lot. I get in there, I have fun with it. I have fun with the abilities, I have fun with the Iron Banner, I have fun with the different things that they do in the Crucible. And the idea of like going after god rolls and things like that all caters towards PvP. And one of the things I've always loved about Destiny is this cohesive universe where the things you do in PvP affect the things you do in PvE and vice versa. I love that. Sometimes it causes issues with how they balance weapons and trying to find that balance. But personally, I would rather have it than not have it. And I love the idea that these two worlds are connected and everything I do at any point in the game is all working towards this same character that I've been working on since day one. Like when you play PvP in other games, they're separate most of the time. It's like you have a character in Call of Duty and you're developing that guy that has no bearing on what you do in any of the other modes in the game. But everything you do in Destiny is all interconnected, and I love that about the game. So obviously there's always things they can improve on. There's always things that they can iterate on and do better with PvP. But half of your community on a daily basis are PvP players. It would make literally absolutely zero sense for them to eviscerate PvP from this game moving forward. So that's my thoughts on it. But I want to get your take on it, Brent.
Bullshit.
Yeah.
It's bullshit. There's no way. There's absolutely no way.
Yeah.
Iron Banner is one of the pinnacle events, in my opinion, in terms of like Crucible. Iron Banner is incredibly fun. Iron Banner is where you go when you put in your time and to rank your character up and to get the best gear and to get the best weapons and have them all ranked up really high. That is one of the most unique ways to show off how much all the effort you've put into the game. Okay, PvP in general I think is fun. I think Crucible is really, really fun. I don't want to lose modes like Mayhem. I don't want to lose that. Mayhem is insanely fun. Competitive is
coming back this week, by the way.
Yeah. Competitive, super intense matches, a lot of good times there when you're playing with a team that works and communicates together. That is really, really fun. It's done very, very well. But yeah, I don't want to lose stuff like that. The valor and the glory and all the pinnacle weapons that are tied to it. That's stuff that gets me to go in there and play a mode that I really do enjoy and have rewards there. No, I don't want to see Crucible go away. I think Crucible is awesome. I think it's a lot of fun. And like you said, man, there's a lot of people, everything is tied together like you mentioned, and for as many people as are that love to spend a lot of time in the PvE events and doing story and doing strikes, there are people that love doing Crucible, that love that grind, that love the elements that they see there. And I mean, they could expand on that when you get your Crucible gear. They could expand more on gear sets for Crucible. I mean, there's just way too much to mine there. There's way too much cool stuff they could do with Crucible. PvP belongs in Destiny. It has a place in Destiny. It needs to be in Destiny.
I mean, can you imagine Bungie having a shooter with no PvP?
No.
These are the guys that made Halo. These guys that made Halo and Destiny. And they're just suddenly going to abandon PvP.
And it's a damn fine PvP mode. Destiny Crucible does not feel tacked on.
Yeah. No.
It's not a tacked on mode. This is an integral part of Destiny. It's an important part that has some of the best modes to play. So, no. But getting rid of Crucible will be a terrible, terrible decision.
Yeah, I don't buy that either. I think that's complete and total BS. If you go back to the game we just played,
that is straight bullshit.
That is on the complete and total BS scale. And this kind of gained traction and spiraled further out of control when we saw Josh Hamrick and John Wisniewski both vacate their positions at Bungie, and they're both like high-ranking like sandbox Crucible guys at the company. So they were like, all right, these guys are moving on. Now there's this rumor about Crucible, and the annual pass hasn't focused a lot on the Crucible. There's
Right.
been little sandbox changes here and there, but by and large, there hasn't been any sweeping changes to the Crucible. So people are trying to connect all these dots as to and battle royale is this, and there's all these different PvP experiences out there now. So people are trying to connect all these dots as to why PvP might not be in the future of Destiny. But yeah, I think when it comes down to it, for all the reasons we just talked about, no way in hell Destiny doesn't have PvP moving forward. There's zero chance of that happening. Zero. So this is what became of that. So Bungie had a Gambit Prime stream recently. They did like a Bungie bounty, and the first thing Deej had to address when he got on there was this Crucible stuff. So he got on there and was like, quote, "There are members of the development team who come into Bungie every day to work on Destiny, and they are hard at work upstairs right now on future evolution for the Crucible." End quote.
Boom.
And he said some other stuff in that stream too, where he was like, we've got some things to talk about when it comes to the Crucible. I can't talk about them now. This is not a reveal stream. This is a Bungie bounty for Gambit, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. But he basically flat out said, look, this is BS. We are working on what the Crucible looks like in the future right now. And to further that, they also addressed this in This Week at Bungie this week as well. If I can get this up here.
Yeah, and I think that speaks volumes to how much noise the community was making when they're doing a Bungie bounty, and Deej feels pressed to discuss it at the very beginning and throughout the show. That says a lot about where the community was and how loud this and the type of noise this made.
Yeah, this thing spiraled out of control, man. I mean, this is a Gambit stream. There's nothing to do with Crucible.
A Gambit bounty stream, and Deej has to be like, okay, look, we're going to address this really quick.
Yeah. So not only did Deej talk about it, but they addressed it on This Week at Bungie as well. So they actually finished out This Week at Bungie with this. Quote, one more thing before we close. One more thing before we close this week out. There have been a lot of questions about the future of the Crucible in Destiny and what plans we have to support PvP going forward. Yesterday, we let you know during a stream that we have no plans to remove PvP from the Destiny franchise.
Boom, franchise.
Okay? A lot of feedback on Crucible and how it could improve comes in the form of suggested sandbox changes that would impact the flow of combat in PvP. As you can see from the section above, we are still committed to updating the sandbox as frequently as we can, and we have an update going out next week. We have bigger Crucible changes planned for later this year, but we aren't ready to talk about those plans just yet. We hope to share more with you sometime this summer. In the meantime, we will continue to provide updates to matchmaking, quality of life fixes, sandbox balance, and glory changes. End quote. So, I mean, right there, we have big changes for the Crucible coming at the end of this year. We'll talk about it this summer. We have no plans to remove PvP from the Destiny franchise moving forward. We have people that come into work every single day to work on the Crucible. They're working on the future of it right now. So it's pretty clear that this is not going anywhere. PvP is a part of Destiny. So I think we can rest assured that this will be a non-issue moving forward.
As soon as they said not removing, PvP from the franchise, that's all I needed to hear.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's it.
So we can put that to bed. All right. So we're gonna switch. If I can talk, we're gonna switch gears again.
Uh-oh.
We're gonna get into some more stuff from This Week at Bungie because there are a few things we need to know. First off, Brent. So Tuesday, Arc Week starts. So this is something we've been talking about for a while now. It's been on the calendar. We're like, what the hell is Arc Week? So we have a little bit of an idea of what Arc Week is now. This is from This Week at Bungie. A storm is brewing. Next week, we'll kick off what we've been calling Arc Week. Our goal for this happening has been to take the element that makes our sandbox crackle and put it under the microscope. The most noticeable update is that we improved many Arc subclass paths from the time before Forsaken. The week will also feature Arc Singe and Arc Bounties to synergize with your updated abilities. To provide a proving grounds for all this new energy, Mayhem will be available in the Crucible to let you experiment with your enhanced Arc abilities using shockingly short cooldowns. Arc Week will also feature one of the most powerful Arc weapons ever created, the Thunderlord exotic machine gun.
Yeah.
If you weren't able to complete the quest to obtain Thunderlord last year, you will have from April 9th until April 23rd to revisit the Cosmodrome and add it to your collection.
Ah, nice.
So that is a nice addendum for those of you that didn't have a chance to grab Thunderlord. It's a very simple quest, very easy to do. Go in there and get Thunderlord because, Brent, you can you can vouch for the domination that gun possesses,
yeah.
especially when it comes to like Gambit and the Crucible right now. That thing's nasty.
It's a beaut.
So as we mentioned here, so one of the big things about Arc Week is what they're doing to these subclasses. So basically all of the old Arc subclasses are going under the hood, Brent, and they're doing some different things, some quality of life changes. So you and I don't play as Titans very often, if at all. So I don't know a lot about what these changes mean for Code of the Juggernaut, but the Striker bottom tree Code of the Juggernaut path is getting updated with some seemingly good sounding things. Frontal Assault now increases all weapon damage for the duration of the buff, 25% against combatants and 20% against players. The duration of this has been increased from 10 to 16 seconds, which is sizable. And the buff timer is now displayed on the HUD. Excuse me. When it comes to Knockout, melee damage bonus has been increased from 25% to 60%.
Jeez.
Now also triggers once you have dealt 60% damage to a target. Any damage done after 60% will refresh the timer, and it still also triggers off shield pop. No longer consumed after one melee attack, and its duration has been increased from 3 to 5 seconds. So the idea with Code of the Juggernaut is to create this combat loop where your melee is making your weapon stronger, and your weapons are making your melee stronger, and you're going through this kind of this interesting, engaging combat loop with that class.
Punch and shoot.
Yeah. So that sounds pretty cool. How about the Arc Strider, Brent? Is there anything that would make you play Arc Strider in this game? Money. All right.
Yeah, money.
We'll have to see if we can get a GoFundMe going. Fun Brent's Arc Strider. So here, I want to get your thoughts on this. So here's what they're doing with Arc Strider, with Way of the Warrior. This is the top path, top tree Arc Strider. This path thrives on striking with precision and timing and is heavily melee focused. To enhance this loop, we are giving it a bit more nuance with a higher potential payout. We want to allow for more room to executing and engage with both the path to success and the benefits once you do succeed. So for Combination Blow, the bonus melee damage can now be stacked 3 times. Requires a melee ability kill for each stack. So get this. Buff increases melee damage by 60% per stack in PvE and by 22.7% in PvP. For comparison, this ability used to be 1 stack and increased melee damage by 50%. So at 3 stacks, that's 180% in PvE. That's a lot. Wow. Kills with this ability now heal 40 health in addition to starting health regen. So even better. Deadly Reach, increased buff duration from 6 to 8 seconds, and the buff is no longer consumed by a melee hit. What do you think about this, man? This gonna get you some top tree Arc Strider action in your future?
Well, I mean, it's Arc Week, so I might as well hop in there and give it a try. I mean, I'm not gonna go crazy about it until I actually try it out and see how effective it is. But it is Arc Week, and I like to play by the rules and be like everyone else and get in line. So I'll pop on the Arc Strider and see what it's all about. But I'm not gonna get too excited about it.
How about Bottom Path? This path is about quick movement and thriving under pressure. We want to increase your ability to survive while at low health and enhance your elusiveness so you can be more confident when in danger. This way you don't just get a bonus when you're injured, you have more control over what state you are in, and you can make more risk-reward choices. So for Disorienting Blow, you can increase the disorient distance. The disorient distance has been increased by 50%, and the duration has been increased from 1.5 to 2 seconds. Focused breathing. Increased dodge recharge bonus while sprinting by 100%. It's sizable.
Yes.
Combat meditation increased bonus grenade and melee regeneration while bloodied by 25%. And lightning reflexes increased damage resistance while dodging from 25 to 40 in PvP and from 63% to 70% in PvE. What do you think about this, Brent?
Hard to get excited because I hate Arc Strider, but again, I'll have more to tell you about this next week. Let me try it before I get excited. I can't get excited. I hate Arc Strider, dude. I hate Arc Strider. And
that intense.
I can't stand Arc Strider, but like I said, I'll go in there and try it out and see if I should get excited for it. But see, that's going to piss me off if I go in and get excited for it, and then Arc Week goes away and it goes back to getting dumbed down. I'm not going to want to use it anymore.
I think these changes are permanent to the subclasses, so I think we can.
Oh, these are permanent changes. Oh, okay.
I believe these are permanent changes to the subclasses.
Oh.
They're coming as a part of Arc Week. The Arc classes are getting redone.
Oh, that's good then.
Stormcaller getting some work, which I'm happy to see. So both the top tree and bottom tree Stormcaller damage scales up to 150% over 5 seconds of continuous use of the attack, which is nice. That's going to be exciting, especially in PvE when you're like cranking into a boss or a large group of enemies, and to have that damage modifier jumping up there, and then you can kind of direct your focus towards a major or towards a boss. That's going to be pretty useful.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to top path on Stormcaller, the chain lightning melee can now chain up to 5 times, up from 1, and each individual target can be hit twice. Chain damage has decreased from 50 to 31 per damage per chain hit to accommodate for that. Arc Web can now chain to many more targets and back and forth between targets. The amount of chaining varies based on use, and they'll leave it for us to discover in terms of how that works. Chain range has been increased from 10 meters to 12 meters, and chaining arc damage now reduces the cooldown of your grenade. Works with arc web chains and chains from chain lightning melee. Earn 3% energy per instance of chain damage in PvE and 10% in PvP. So all that sounds good for Stormcaller. Bottom path sounds even more interesting. With Electrostatic Surge, the bonus regeneration rate of your Rift has been increased by 600% per nearby friendly Guardian. Now this sounds insane, but it's a big boost you will definitely feel because it was previously very low. So that 600% not as beefy as it first sounds because it was so low. But Rift duration has been extended from 15 to 20 seconds with Electrostatic Surge. That's another sizable buff. And they've added a notification to the UI when the buff is active. I like this one. Arc Soul extended duration by 50%. So that's pretty exciting. To have that for basically another, you get Arc Soul for 10 seconds or something like that. So have it for 15 seconds is pretty cool. Now, not only Arc classes are being adjusted here, but Nova Warp finally getting back under the hood, because this thing got absolutely decimated to the point where literally nobody uses Nova Warp right now because it just got drove into the ground. So Bungie notes, clearly we swung a bit hard when we hit this previously. This should serve as a nice middle ground to settle into. So coming with Tuesday here, the initial charge detonation energy cost has been reduced by 20%, reduced energy cost of holding the charge detonation by 7%, reduced time required to fully charge the charge detonation from 0.9 seconds to 0.7 seconds, reduced dark blink cost by 20%, and increased duration from 18 to 22 seconds. So we'll see if this is enough to bring Nova Warp back into the conversation. But my gosh, this thing got destroyed the first round through. And then they're doing some stuff to Dawnblade as well. They've tuned the amount of super gain from Everlasting Fire. Initial return increased from 10 to 13% super energy, and return then decays linearly over the course of 30 kills from 13% to 0.75% per kill. They also note that we know that there's an issue with Spectral Blades. We know it's out of bounds and are working right now on a few tweaks to bring it back in line. We'll let you know the details once we finish playtesting and tuning to lock it in on what the changes will be. But yeah, Spectral Blades sucks. That super can eat my ass right now. Every time that thing pops, I'll die from Spectral Blades. I'll spawn on the map. I'll start running around the map. We're like 15, 20 seconds later at this point. Guy's still running around with Spectral Blades, and he'll kill me again or go kill somebody else. Spectral Blades is out of hand.
You know what you do, boys? You do what I do when I see someone pop Stormcall. I just burn them down.
Yeah.
So just burn them down, dude. If you see him, shoot him.
We'll see when you pop Stormcaller and you're just a sitting duck and you're slow and you don't have a great shield. When you pop Spectral Blade, you're nigh invincible and you're moving like lightning. Spectral Blades suck.
I mean, you're really not, but I understand why you're not very good against hunters, and I get it. But I understand. But go ahead, continue.
So all of these subclass changes coming this Tuesday as a part of Arc Week. So interested to jump in there, not only to try the new subclass tweaks, but to see what this Arc Week is all about. So
Yeah, it's cool that they're bringing this out and giving boosting the art classes. I'm curious about these arc bounties. I'm kind of curious about those.
Yeah, curious what those are going to see or what they'll reward.
Did they even say who's gonna be carrying them?
They didn't. What's your best guess? Who would hold arc bounties?
Shit, I don't know.
Maybe like the gunsmith or
I'm trying to think of somebody I don't go see ever. Maybe Hawthorne or not. I don't even know, dude. I don't even know.
Maybe Ikora. Maybe she doesn't have any bounties right now. She just kind of stands there until you get your bounties completed.
I mean, I always go see Ikora, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, if she wants to hold them, that's fine.
Yeah, so I think I'm gonna go with Ikora or the gunsmith. I think either of them.
Sure.
Could be Holiday maybe.
I was gonna say a Holiday. That not Hawthorne. Holiday needs someone to visit her once in a while.
She needs some love, yeah. So that's a distinct possibility. But that's not the only thing going on Tuesday. So there's a big patch going up on Tuesday, 2.2.1. There's some very, very interesting things in here. They've been talking about this a little bit over the past few weeks, but they gave us some juicy nuggets this week, Brent. Mm-hmm. So Exotic Catalyst, 4 new ones coming with this patch on Tuesday. Prospector, Rat King, Hard Light, and Suros Regime will all have their catalysts finally added to the game. The first 3, you'll be able to find them in the Nightfall or in Strikes. Suros will be obtainable in the Crucible. Which is tough because man, those Crucible catalysts are tough to come by.
Yes, they are.
I still have yet to get Vigilance Wing or several of these that are in there. So I might never see Suros Regime, but hey, at least it's in there now.
What's the catalyst unlocked for Suros?
I don't know.
What's the perk? Oh, they didn't list those.
They did not list the perks, so we'll have to get these catalysts and see what they do. But yeah, I'm super curious to see what some of this stuff does. Like what Hard Light, like what might that do? Suros, yeah. So, I love Exotic Catalysts. And Tassie actually wrote an article a few days back where he was talking about how much people loved Exotic Catalysts. They just kind of disappeared from the game. Right. So they're finally bringing these back. But yeah, hopefully we can beat the drum that these things kind of stick around because there's so many more exotics that don't have catalysts right now that would be great to get them into the game.
Right.
Because not only do they obviously enhance the weapon, but they masterwork the weapon as well. And right now, not using a masterwork weapon, you just feel like empty. Like I'm not generating orbs. Like I need to be masterworked. Mm-hmm. Also on the docket here, fixing the issue with Warlock Bloom, where the ability would not deal damage. Xur's inventory will now offer random rolled perks for armor.
Oh, nice.
It's interesting. Infusion fixed an issue where the Vow could not be infused above 650, and where the Braytech RWP Mark II, which is basically the legendary version of the Polaris Lance, could not be infused above 600. So those will both be fixes coming Tuesday. Interesting stuff with Gambit Prime here. So Gambit Prime weapons, so they've talked about this, but most Gambit Prime weapons will now have a chance to drop as match completion rewards from Gambit Prime, increasing drop rates for Gambit Prime weapons from the Reckoning. Both Gambit Prime and the Reckoning will have increased drop rates for weapons after each completion without a drop until players are guaranteed a reward. So much like they did with Escalation Protocol, they're doing that with the Gambit Prime weapons now as well.
I keep thinking about Escalation Protocol, and I think Frankie's done it like 7 billion times, and he still hasn't gotten the shotgun to drop. He's got
to be pretty high on the percentage right now.
He's got to be at like 99.9. Like it can't go any higher, and he still can't get that damn thing to drop.
Also with Gambit Prime, an invasion kill will heal 8% of the Primeval's health, down from 12%. Mm-hmm. The invasion portal cooldown time during the Primeval phase will be increased to 40 seconds, up from 30 seconds. That's an interesting change there. This cooldown triggers after a player has been killed or successfully returns from an invasion, and Gambit Prime will now count to unlock the weekly Gambit clan engram, which is big. What do you think about those changes, Brent? As somebody who likes to invade, what about this idea of the countdown time going up 10 seconds? So there's going to be a lot less invading during the Primeval phase.
I love invading, so anytime you're cutting back on my invasions, it's kind of a bummer. But obviously, Bungie has seen something that the community hasn't either. The community hasn't really enjoyed, or there's some unbalance there that they've discovered. But I guess it's one of those things, man, where you don't really know the impact of a change until you
Mhm.
actually hop in there and play it and see how it feels.
Yeah.
I mean, 10 seconds, that can seem like an eternity, especially when you're getting
Yeah.
down to the wire.
Mhm.
That's why I always liked about having it being up so quick is, like, it gives you that last fighting chance. You remove that 10 second, or you add 10 more seconds to that. I mean, that makes those invasions much more important, that's for sure.
Yeah. I'm not sure what to think of it either. Although in the Gambit Prime matches, I've played up to this point, I do feel like during the Primeval phase, a little bit like the invaders are on the screen too much.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have those mechanics now with them where, you have a damage phase and then you got to go out and kill the envoys. And I feel like, yeah, you're
Yeah.
seeing those invaders like multiple times over the course of those phases, and sometimes it impedes your ability to get damage or to hit your envoys, and maybe a little bit too much. So I'm interested to see how this plays out. But yeah, like you
So
said,
you
we
feel
just
like
got to get in
maybe
there.
it kind of imposes or impedes you from, like, actually really focus on what matters, like the envoys and stuff. Like, you're constantly having to worry about,
Yeah.
the invader coming in. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. It doesn't allow you to get into a rhythm with your team to take down the envoys. You have to stop and worry about the invader. I mean, it might actually, yeah, I can see how that might make an impact, a positive impact on the experience. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see how it plays.
It can stretch out those primeval phases a little bit longer as well than
Yeah.
maybe they need to be, because your invader's coming over, he's killing you, and then resetting everything back to normal, and then you've got to go out and kill the envoys again
Yeah,
to get back into the
it does
damage
drag
phase.
that out considerably.
Yeah,
It does drag
so-
that out considerably. And I never really noticed that because I'm always invading, so I'm not
Yeah.
really on that side,
Mhm.
dealing with that. So I mean, maybe if I was playing more of like a Reaper or something to that effect, where I'm more focused on taking down envoys and more focused on the primeval as opposed to invading, I probably would notice that a little bit more.
Yeah, that's a change I'm really really interested to check out.
Hmm.
A couple more things here. So power surge bounties that have been deleted or expired will now be available on the Drifter for you to grab. Yes, sir, I'm a closer. The weekly Gambit Prime bounty will now award 4 points for a win and 2 points for a loss, with a completion value of 20. So that one will be easier to obtain now. And all 4 weekly roll bounties for Gambit will now grant powerful helmet rewards. So we also have 3 new emotes that are going to be part of Arc Week, one for each class. So you've got your Hunter, your Titan, and your Warlock playing with their Arc energy in various different ways. So we'll have access to those emotes this week as well. And that's gonna do it for us, Brent. I am dying and losing my voice here, but
Say, man, I bet you're glad we're done.
yeah, but there's just a lot going on in the world of Destiny this week. A lot to talk about, a lot to be excited about, a lot to wonder about, a lot of very interesting times ahead for us in the world of Destiny. But yeah, if this stuff is true, man, I like the direction we're headed here.
Yeah, there's a lot of good things that we could take out of, especially the stuff that Shadow had to talk about. There's a lot of interesting pieces in there. The things that stood out, again, just the fact that it's going to be focused more on the hardcore players,
Yeah.
the hardcore experience, RPG elements, a lot of cool. We heard stuff about new enemy races, places we could be visiting, those ships, for example. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff coming out of these leaks. A lot of bullshit from some of the 4chan stuff, but there was a lot of good stuff that we heard this week.
Yeah, man. A lot of it's super exciting. I always love hearing about the future of Destiny. It gets me juiced up for where we're going from here. So lots of good times ahead. I can't wait, man. But just an epic week in terms of Destiny conversation, from leaks to the controversies to the whole 9 yards. So just a lot going on in the world of Destiny. So if you guys like what we do here on Tower Talk, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell so you always know when we go live. We do Tower Talk Thursdays at 10 p.m. Eastern, so make sure you tune in for that. Be a part of the conversation. Hop into the comment section. Leave comments after the video if you're watching it on demand. We love to hear from you guys that way as well. Shout out to Jacob and Insanity who are in the chat with us today.
Wolf was in there tonight as well.
Wolf in there as well. We
Yes,
always love chatting Destiny with those guys. So glad that you could be a part of the show. So other than that, Brent, you got anything else you want to get off your chest?
That's it, dude. I think we hit it on. We should probably get you to the hospital.
Yeah, I am. Like I said, losing my voice, a little bit under the weather already. So that's kind of mixing with my a lot of the talking that's been going on for the last however long. So but yeah, that's gonna do it for us. thank you to everybody for watching the show. We really appreciate it. You guys have a great night. We'll talk to you next week for some more Destiny stuff. All right.
Good night,
See you guys
everybody.
later.